Hello and welcome to week 3 of Theater 191, and this is Theater in Context. When does theater begin? In this video, we're going to be going over what the origins of theater are and some of the reasons that theater began. So when did theater begin? There are a few potential ideas. First, many historians trace the beginnings of Western theater back to the ancient Greeks. And from that is where we get many of our words for theater, including the word theater, which traces its origins back to the Greek theatron, which is one of the words that they used to describe the space. The ancient Greeks began in 532 BCE, and we will talk a little bit more about them in a bit. One of the other theories is that theater began out of religious rituals, and this can be traced to a variety of different places around the globe. And finally, theater historians trace the beginnings of theater to storytellers who stopped telling stories and began acting out bits of character. So all three of these origin stories are possible as the first bit of theater, but unfortunately we do not have a complete record to trace to the very first time that theater began. That being said, however, people do like to trace the very first actor in ancient Greece to a man named Thespis, which is where we get the word thespian, which means actor, because he was a member of a chorus in the Dithyramb competition in Athens in ancient Greece, and he stepped forth from the chorus and became the first actor. And that's one of the origin stories of theater. Now, the ancient Greek theater was also a form of religious ritual to the Greek god Dionysus, who is the Greek god of wine and theater. And the theater became a part of a religious ritual, so you can see how those two theories go together at what was known as the City Dionysa, which was a great big festival that was held yearly and a playwriting competition. Now, ancient Greek theater, we like to trace it to 532 BCE. The major tragic playwrights of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides were over several hundred years. Now, we only have about less than 10 of their plays in existence anymore. However, we know from records that hundreds of plays were written. So some of those plays include Oedipus Rex, Antigone, and Medea, all of which are big concepts that have lasted over 2,000 years, and we still tell these stories because the ancient Greeks wrote them down. In ancient Greek society, theater was used as a way to assert the moral authority of the state and told citizens about how to be a good citizen while honoring the god of Dionysus in a religious festival. And what you can see, this picture over to the right, is a amphitheater, which is the type of building that the ancient Greeks performed in. So who was on stage in ancient Greece? The leader of the City Dionysa festival was generally a military hero. And the chorus in Greek tragedies, because Greek tragedies generally only have between 1 to 3 actors playing all of the roles, and then a chorus who steps in as society. And the choral roles were performed by a group of young men with military background, and their military maneuvers helped to create the choreography on stage. And choreography is also a Greek word. So you can see many of these words we still use for theater trace back to ancient Greece. At first, there were only one actor and the chorus in original Greek theater plays. So that's Thespis and his chorus from the Dithyramb competition. Later, there would be 3 actors and the chorus. And the actors would wear masks to play multiple characters. So while there are only 3 actors, there were more than 3 characters, but only 3 of them would ever be on stage at the same time with the chorus. So amphitheater design. The architects designed the theater space so that the actors in the chorus could be seen and heard. Now, I'm sure you've been in classrooms where it is difficult to understand what people are saying because the acoustics aren't very good. And back in 532 BCE to about 350 BCE, which is the height of Greek theater, those hundreds of years, they didn't have a lot of the technology we have today. Obviously, they didn't have microphones, they didn't have sound systems. And so the shape of the theater and the materials used to create the seating created excellent acoustics so that everyone could hear everything. And so the theater in Athens was also built into the side of a hill that would let the play be lit by the sun in the afternoon and early evening. So they used nature and natural acoustics to create a theater space where you could easily be heard and seen. There's an additional YouTube video underneath this video that will let you look and hear just how good acoustics were in ancient Greek amphitheaters. Now, religious rituals, which is our second possible origin of theater. And so while the Greeks are the founders of what we call Western theater, there are many different styles of ritual that developed into what we now call theater. Independently from the Greeks, there are religious practices in India, for example, that led to the development of Hindi dance drama like Kathakali. And you can see over here one of these Kathakali dancers in their glorious makeup and costuming. And they trained for years to be able to perform very intricate dance drama. And then on the bottom right here, you can see an example of wayang kulit, which is also known as Balinese or Javanese shadow puppetry. And it's religious rituals in Bali that led to the development of Balinese shadow puppet theater, which is performed by a priest called the Dalang. And it's believed that those performances, the way that they tell them, rebalances the world. So telling the story and performing the story, that mode of theater is a means of balancing the light and the darkness through the form of shadow and rebalancing what it was unbalanced in a society in the world. Storytelling, which is our third origin idea, is another theory, and it states that storytellers naturally transition from telling their story to acting it out and performing the dialogue. And I think this is probably the most easy to understand because when we get very involved in a story, we start to act it out. And all of these things together begin to create what we now know as theater. Theater is a human way to make meaning. All of these potential origins have one thing in common. They began as a way for society to explain the way the world worked and the way that society should function. Theater had a power to appease gods and to influence audiences. And as I mentioned previously in Balinese shadow puppet theater, for example, the Dalang's performance is believed to rebalance the world. So I ask you, as we go through this course, to think about the ways in which performance has power, and performance has the ability to do something beyond just entertain. Additionally, it's important to think about just how influential theater has been, because ancient Greek theater has had an impact on today's world. Because if you think about in the field of psychology, Freud developed the idea of the Oedipus complex because of the plot of Sophocles' play Oedipus Rex. We have the phrase Deus ex machina, which means God from the machine in Greek, and it's a phrase and a trope that we use a lot of the time to mean that someone has miraculously saved the day without any entrance into the plot or into the story prior to that, which is something that would happen in Greek theater every once in a while. Additionally, the tropes we see on television sitcoms can be traced all the way back to ancient Greek comedies. So a lot of the things that we laugh at today, and the physical comedy and the character types, are things that can be traced all the way back to the Greeks' satyr plays and the Greek comedy tradition. So there's a lot we still have in common, and then a lot that is, we can see the humanity throughout the ages by looking at older theater.